Hello again, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. So if you didn't hear me earlier, my name is Kevin Hancock, Director of Solutions here at Exostar. And thanks for joining me for enabling secure CUI, storage and handling without compliance headaches. Before I go into the formal presentation, just wanted to cover a few housekeeping details. So today's session is scheduled to last 30 minutes. Now, that does include Q&A. We received like 6 questions before today's via email or via the submission of questions when you registered for today. So I'm going to cover those. We may not have time to take other questions that are over chat or something like that, but I'll answer those questions that were submitted prior. If for some reason we do have an outage today, just go ahead and try and reconnect by refreshing your screen. If that doesn't work, you can also come into the session via that email you received and that hyperlink that comes into the meeting, and you should join up where you left off. Now, if one of those questions you have is, will I get today's presentation? The answer is yes. You'll get a follow-up from today's presentation that includes the slide deck as well as a link to today's recording. Now, if at any time you'd like to speak with one of our Exostar Managed Microsoft experts, or if you have additional questions after today's session, you can reach out to us a couple of different ways. You can email us at managedmicrosoft365@exostar.com. You can also come to our website, www.exostar.com. There's a form submission page there, or page on every page on the website, and you can certainly ask questions that way as well. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into today's discussion. So hopefully, as many of you know, the Department of Defense is updating its contractual requirements around around maintaining control over and securing controlled unclassified information. Now, these aren't new requirements, but it is a refinement of those in that it's introducing a CMMC model, cybersecurity maturity model, of 3 levels, which is just getting ready to take full effect. And by full effect, I mean it's going to start appearing in contracts. And so it'll be a requirement of you if you have contracts with the Department of Defense or if you're a subcontractor to those that are. These requirements, the major difference between the previous requirements are that if you receive controlled unclassified information as part of your requirements or your contractual requirements, once every 3 years, you're going to be required to have an assessment done of how you've implemented the NIST 800-171 controls. So if you're in that boat, it's time to start to think about, okay, hopefully you know what those NIST 800-171 controls are. As you start to develop what that is, you need to start thinking about where you are storing, processing, and transmitting that controlled unclassified information. The best way to do that is to take a look at how that information flows across your organization. As you define the scope of that controlled unclassified information in your organization, you're going to have to determine whether or not it makes sense to create an enclave solution where I gate off the users and systems where that information is stored, processed, and transmitted, or if it's so pervasive in my organization, do I basically ensure my entire organization is compliant with NIST 800-171? Based on those findings, you'll again have another decision point. Do I build my own enclave? Do I look for a SaaS solution, a software as a service solution, or a cloud service for a solution that allows me to, again, gate off that controlled unclassified information and the users of that information and provide them a method to keep it out of my corporate environment so we can be compliant, but lessen the impact on the overall business. Part of your determination will be whether or not you have the in-house expertise to build that enclave and put in those controls, or do you want to outsource portion of that as well? And then, the practicalities of the implementation timeline. How long is it going to take me to be compliant with the new regulations? Do I have time to do that? And keep in mind that these are being finalized as we speak. Kind of the final step in that CMMC process is being finalized. There is an implementation phased approach after that, but you really need to start thinking about this, start preparing, and get your ducks in a row to make sure your organization doesn't miss out on these important rule changes. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is an Exostar approach around providing that compliant file storage to allow you to securely collaborate around that controlled unclassified information your organization and your partners may have in an easy to use system that's both easy to access, easy to use, and maintains a comfortable interface for your team members. The solution I'm talking about is Exostar's managed Microsoft 365. This is an enclave approach which stands up a Teams environment up in Microsoft's Azure GCC High. It's managed and supported by Exostar. When you're there within the enclave, we provide 85 of those 110 NIST 800-171 controls. This reduces the burden on your IT staff, obviously, because Exostar will manage, update, maintain, monitor, secure, etc. that enclave. Exostar's support team will be the ones on call to answer any of your questions that you have. Both Exostar's support team and our tech ops team are US citizens in the US, so we can also maintain that ITAR data that may be part of your overall CUI data that you have. This meets those security requirements around a cloud service provider. So we're currently in the process of completing our FedRAMP moderate equivalent requirements around that. So this provides kind of that easy to use solution that gets you jump started on that path to the compliance with NIST 800-171. Now, this solution consists of three key components. Obviously, one of those is a Teams environment up in Microsoft's GCC High. This environment is linked together with Exostar's identity and access management platform. Many of you are using this today to get into various supply chain portals and other collaboration tools with a large number of the primes out there. Your Boeings, your Raytheons, HIIs, etc. of the world. You're using this to report on your compliance with various cybersecurity requirements. So you've got a credential already to get into the Exostar network. This, linked with that GCC High platform, also includes an Exostar application embedded within it, which puts kind of the guardrails around that team's environment so you can manage that environment for your team. And by that, I mean you can create teams, you can invite users, you can gate their access to different things within the system. This, combined with everything else, creates that compliant environment to deliver you this as a cloud service to store, process, and transmit that CUI that you may receive or create as part of your requirements with the Department of Defense. So as I mentioned, the solution architecture looks as you see here. This is that Teams environment up in Microsoft's GCC High. It's got an Exostar application embedded within it, which manages the enclave in a least privileged access model. but allows you to manage access into the environment, create the individual team spaces where the collaboration around documents, the storage, the processing, the transmitting of that information will occur. Invite individuals from your organization or external partners if necessary. Bring them in to allow that collaboration to occur in a familiar environment that everyone is already used to. Now, if you do have a GCC High environment that you're using today, and the problem you have is how do I work with my third parties, this solution also satisfies that use case. We can use an Azure B2B connection to connect the environments with what you have today up in GCC High. We can link your third-party partners either via Exostar or through their own GCC High tenants to provide you what Microsoft calls a meet me tenant to work securely with those third parties as well, both across that CUI information or any other critical information you may have that you need to collaborate securely with your partners. Now, I'm going to demonstrate this solution to you and show you how it works. So I've got the environment here. So this is Exostar's managed Microsoft 365 environment. In this case, I'm logged in as Adam Spark. And Adam Spark is Exostar's customer. He works for a company called Glory Minerals. Glory Minerals has a portion of its organization that works on DoD contracts. They're the ones who, our everyday work continues on in our regular corporate environment. So when I'm not working on CUI, I'm working in, say, my corporate team's environment. I'm getting my email at adamspark@gloryminerals.com. But when I need to work on controlled unclassified information, I come in here to my browser, I log into the system, and I work on those individual team spaces that we've created. These we've set up either based on a partner we're working with, like Grainger Systems, a program we're working with, like a contract, and in these are where we store that information. And we do all that here within the browser. So we're keeping all this information here within the enclave and not bringing it down into that Glory Minerals environment. Now, Adam Spark administers this environment for Glory Minerals. He doesn't have to come to Exostar to say, hey, can you add so-and-so? Can you create this team? Do all those kinds of things. Adam does that on behalf of Glory Minerals. He does that using this Exostar application that's embedded here within the environment. This means that he can, add other people into the environment. He can also delete those people. So, we have a partner, Grainger Systems. Emma Jackson is one of the people from that organization that works here with us within the tenant. She's part of these teams with us. But these are the only teams that she has access to. Because again, everything's built on a least privileged access model. So you don't get access to the tenant until you're invited into it. And you don't get access to a particular team until you're invited into that team space. Adam can also add others to be sponsor administrators, right? It shouldn't be the only person. We shouldn't be single threaded through Adam. So we have other sponsor administrators designated from our organization. We can also bring in third parties that we work with. So we've identified a number of third parties that we work on projects with. We need to share with them CUI. So rather than sending via email or something like that may not be secure, we're going to work with them here within the enclave. This is allowed by this Exostar application, and it also allows us additional features that allow us to kind of gate that access, put the guardrails around this system so we're always compliant with NIST 800-171. We can also obviously delete teams, we can archive teams, we can add in users and all those kinds of things as well. If I think something's gone on in the system or I want to check on something, I as an administrator have access to various kinds of reports. So I can get different kinds of audit reports, some that are done by the Exostar application. Some are down at the file level, right? Well, who edited this file last? Did anyone download this file, etc.? So those kinds of things we can keep, here within the system, but we can also check on them if something, if we think something's happened. Now, as I mentioned, Exostar's tech ops teams are the ones that are actually monitoring the system. They're doing the network monitoring, the SOC and NOC, security operations center and network operations center here around the environment. Those are part of those responsibilities of those different controls that Exostar is implementing fully here within the enclave. What we're also doing within this space is as I've mentioned, this app is providing us some additional functionality to put the guardrails around these team spaces so we can maintain the information here within the enclave, ensure it doesn't come down to Glory Mineral systems, and make sure that people can't exfiltrate data. So these are when I create a particular team. So I created a team called CUI Inbox. What this provides us is a team space, and this can be done on any team, that I can create a file drop inbox that allows people to send information into the enclave. So I don't get CUI sent to me at my corporate email, right? Because my corporate email's in, for example, GCC commercial, or I'm sorry, not GCC commercial, but Azure commercial environment. I don't want the information there. So I've provided this email address, right? I've turned on team file drop. I've created this address so people can send that information here. I did this earlier using my kevin.hancock at Exostar account. I sent in some CUI information for a new project that we're starting, Project Clan. That information has come into the environment, and it has a number of attachments. Now, we don't yet have a space for this particular project, and there's really no members yet of this project. So let me go ahead and set that up. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to create a team space for this project, and I'm going to invite individuals into it, and then I'm going to move that information into that space because that'll then allow the team a collaboration space to work with that. So I'm going to go in, and again, I'm using this Exostar application that's embedded within here. I'm going to go ahead and create the Clanton team. It's going to be a 12-month project, and we're going to go ahead and create this team space. Now, at this time, because this is set up on a least privileged access, the only person that has access to this is Adam, right? But we need to invite others into this team space. So in that case, we're going to use that invitation. So we're going to go ahead and invite individuals into that space. And I can either do it individually by email address, or I can use a delimited list. So I go in, I bring down this delimited list, and I look up these users. Now, some of these users are already here within this particular managed Microsoft environment. Some of these folks are with partners that aren't recognized, like Yahoo, right? Nobody from Yahoo is allowed into this space. So if I wanted to bring people from that environment, I would go into the administration tab and I add that domain into allowed domains. Then those folks are going to register with Exostar. That's where they'll be proofed and get the necessary credential to get into the system. And then they'll be in. As you see, it's got some users that are already identified. They're already here within the system. Some of them are from Glory Minerals. That's, the company that is the sponsor of this space, and they're the Exostar customer. Those folks that are from Glory Minerals, I'm going to make Maya the team manager because she's the team lead for this particular work effort. So Maya can now manage this space. She can invite others. She can remove people from this project space. She can put in additional applications, etc. There are some folks that don't yet have accounts here in Manage Microsoft 365 or in Exostar, but they're from domains that are allowed in. So I'm going to invite Dury and Flynn. Now, their invitation is going to first direct them to create their Exostar account, get the necessary credential, go through the proofing process, and then they'll get access to the Exostar network, and then they'll have access to this particular application. As these invitations go out, all these people will be notified, and then they'll have access to that Clanton team space. Now, as this works, right, they're going to get those invitations. Those that aren't yet in the system will go ahead and register and get into it. But then the work itself is going to get done, here within the Clanton team space. It should be here at the bottom. Yep. But it doesn't yet have any information. So I need to get that information that was sent in before the actual project kicked off. I need to bring it in. So I'm going to go back into the managed Exostar 365 interface for the application. I'm going to go into that managed teams. I'm going to bring in that information that was sent in. I'm going to move it over to that particular team space. So let me go into that CUI inbox space. I don't know why I keep hiccuping when I click on that button. Go into there. Go into this particular message. I'm going to view it. And I'm then going to go ahead and move that information over to that team that I just created. Now, when these files came in, that's when they were checked for malware, viruses, spam, etc. That happens every time you upload any kind of file into Teams. It's just part of the service, if you will, into Microsoft Teams. As we move these files around, there is, a similar kind of functionality to send information from the tenant as well. So hopefully most of you know, SharePoint itself is also part of the package, right? Teams itself is just an interface over SharePoint. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these image files that are just part of my default signature block as part of Exostar. To delete those. And then I'm going to move the files that actually have data or things we may want to collaborate around, share the CUI information, if you will. And I'm going to move those to that Clanton space. I need more places. And we're going to move them over to this team. And we'll move those here. They'll disappear from here and they'll move over there. Now, this Exostar application isn't just providing this email functionality, it's also doing other things around the different team spaces. It has additional permissions, so I could block download from this team space or any team space. So I can block download, so people have to stay here within the web browser. And we're going to use this web browser not only to see the information, but we can also use this to actually, collaborate around the files themselves. So Teams has that ability to, look at, or actually to edit Word documents, Excel, PowerPoint, all those kinds of things. You can open PDFs and view those. All those kinds of default productivity applications are available through the web browser. So if I look at these files, you'll see, Atom Spark just changed this particular file a few seconds ago because it's going to keep these things under version control. It's going to keep up to date with all my changes. So hopefully I gave you a quick overview of the application and this particular enclave solution to store, process, and transmit that CUI. This is just one of Exostar's many compliance solutions. We also offer particular solutions around CMMC compliance. We have a CMMC ready suite that can kind of help you wherever you are around your journey. We obviously have this solution for secure collaboration. We also then have a number of solutions around supply chain management. Whether or not you want to automate the process of getting your demand from the various supply chain portals that you work with, or if you're a larger organization where you want to build your own supply chain portal, Exostar can also support you there. As you look to determine the status of your various partners and their compliance with CMMC or NIST 800-171 or other representations and certifications that you require, Exostar also has a supplier management solution to help you manage those relationships as well. So as I wrap up, let me go ahead and answer the questions that came in. So number one, does GCC High have a way to search and tag documents that contain CUI? It does. One of the additional services, if you will, that you can attach to this kind of solution is you can use Microsoft's Purview solution to set up tagging and to also search things across an environment that's already there to search for particular search terms. That is something that Exostar can enable as part of this overall solution. So what's the solution recommendation for securely stored CUI that has to be shared with an external party? Can you attach to email and still remain compliant? Now, the quick answer is it depends. So most people recommend, rather than sending documents via email, that you either share those files within a compliant environment like I just showed you. You bring them into your environment and share them there as long as you know your environment is fully compliant. Or you have another kind of encryption technology to deliver those environment or to share those files out. This kind of leads into number three. The key thing with CUI is that you need to ensure encryption of information both at rest and in flight. The problem with email is, the default email transportation protocol is not encrypted, and it's not FIPS 140-2 encryption if it is. So those are things that you have to be kind of cognizant with of when you're sharing that information. Now, once that information is with the other party, it's now their responsibility. And that's kind of part of that overall compliance need that you have with your supply chain to ensure their compliance as well. So number four, at what level of CMMC should an organization submit their SPURS score on the DoD website? So the requirement to submit your SPURS score into the DoD website actually predates the CMMC requirements. If you have the 7019 clause in one of your contracts, that's the clause that requires you to do a self-assessment and score yourself based on NIST 800-171 and then submit that score into the SPRS system. Number five, when can I expect an audit from the DLA or the DoD? Well, you'll expect an audit if for some reason they'll inform you if they're going to audit you. The DoD will require an assessment from them around your compliance with CMMC level 3. That's going to be a once every 3-year requirement. And you'll coordinate that with DoD's DIBCAC arm to have that assessment completed. Those organizations notify you, and they're free to do this anytime if they're going to audit you. There isn't necessarily an expectation of, oh, once every 3 years they're going to audit you. It's once every 3 years you have to have a third party do that assessment, and then based on your CMMC level, it determines whether or not that assessment is done by a C3 PAO, which you contact that organization and do the audit, or DoD's DIBCAC organization. What happens if we are audited and found not fully compliant? So if during your assessment, they find that you're not, you've got some controls that aren't fully implemented, depending on which control it is, they're either going to stop their assessment and say, hey, we can't complete this because you don't have this done. When you have this done, contact us again. We'll schedule another assessment time and we'll start over from scratch. What that's going to do is ensure that there's going to be a delay in your CMMC level 2 compliance, because what you thought you'd have it done by, that's not going to happen. If during their assessment they said, hey, you've got this one control, but that's one of the few allowable controls, then you're going to have to open a POAM against that control, and you'll have 180 days to close that. You'll then contact that CMMC assessment organization to come back, complete the assessment, make sure you do that control again, or the one that you had open, make sure you've fully implemented it. They're going to check that. And that's when you'll receive your certification. In all those cases, you're not going to pass the assessment until those things are done. So everybody, I want to thank you for your time. Sorry I ran a little bit over, but thank you for your time. Hope you have a great rest of the week. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Thanks again.